I've been several years reviewing songs from other people. I give feedback in my weekly live streams to several songs. I give extremely detailed feedback and I analyze every little thing on the songs of my Patreon members. And I listen and review a lot of songs every single day when I create my playlist and people send me their music. If we put all of this together and we think I've been doing this for several years, I reviewed more than 10,000 songs. I mean, I have the stats, I count them. I realize most of the people make the same mistakes, and in this video I'm gonna tell you the 5 most common mistakes people do and how to solve them. And by the way, remember to leave a like and comment in this video as a way of thanking me for this. Number 1. Songs are too static. Of course, it depends in every genre, in the mood of your song, what you want to make, but keeping the song interesting is so important to catch the attention of the listener. Otherwise, they will skip to the next song, and you don't want this, of course. For example, let's imagine you have this drop. So far it is good, but if you keep it like this the whole time, it's gonna be so static and boring. The first thing you can do is add some movement to the preset. For example, this one has this macro here. So you can automate this. And for example, in the 4th bar, we can make it go like this. You know, and it adds some movement. Then, for example, we can copy this in every little bar. Or for example, in this one, we make it different. Another thing you can do is add ear candy, like reverse sounds, shots, all of this. For example, I'm gonna add this shot here. And maybe we can make it unique, reverse it, you can cut the beginning, I don't know, something like this. So now here we have something new. And of course, apart from applying effects and so, what you can do to make it less static and boring is adding more sounds, more elements. For example, we can make an ARP. Something like this, the whole time. So this way we start a drop, okay, like this, like repeating the melody, but then we have at least this sound, here we have the filter and so, and then we add something new. So now it's not that repetitive. So please stop repeating just 2 bars for 3 minutes. That's boring. Number 2, not covering enough space. I hear a lot of songs that maybe the break sounds like this. Which is not that bad in this case. Depending on what you want, it can be good. But most of the times the songs I hear like this, they don't have good chords or the vibe is not that good and it sounds really empty. The first thing you can do is improve the chords and add more notes. By adding more notes, we'll add more harmonies, that will add more frequencies and it will sound fuller. And it's so simple. You maybe can just take the root notes, break 1 octave lower, 1 octave higher, and it sounds stronger. This was before and this after. You can use other presets because maybe the piano you're using is not that full, or for example in this case the bass is really thin. If we check this bass sound, as you can see, it's just this frequency. It doesn't have more octaves or more voices. So I'm gonna use this one instead. As you can see, it's way fuller, has way more depth, way more body, way more everything. It's better. You can also add more instruments, ambient sounds, ARPs, that in the end will also make it more interesting and less static. You know, mistake number 1. So we go from this to this. This way we cover a lot more frequencies because we have a stronger bass, we have more notes in the piano, we have more sounds covering other octaves and other frequencies, which that also makes it sound fuller, but also we're making it sound fuller because we have more instruments and more sounds. Number 3, being off key. It doesn't matter how good your idea is, it doesn't matter how clean your mix is, it doesn't matter how interesting and unique your synths are. If your song is off key, it will always sound bad and nobody will listen to it. To avoid this, you can do several things. First, learn a bit of music theory. You don't need to be a master in music theory, but at least learn the basics. Learn what is a chord, what is a key, what are the notes of a key, what can you use and what you cannot use, all these things. You can also use ghost notes with the key or helpers in the piano roll to know what notes you can use and what notes not. Make sure to check the key of the samples you use with plugins like the FL Tuner or G-Tune. And for the vocal, checking what key they are. If you don't know it or it doesn't say it in the number, you can use the auto key by Autotune. Make sure to pitch it up or down to fit your key, and then use some plugins like Melodyne or Newton to control some notes that maybe are off key, or just use Autotune. And if with all of these you still don't know if something is off key or not, or you just don't trust yourself, First, practice more, and second, send it to a friend that maybe has better ear than you. Mistake number 4, vocals are too quiet or in the background, or too quiet and in the background. The vocals are probably the most important thing in a song, and they need to stand out. Of course, sometimes maybe you want it kind of reverby and in the background for the vibe. These are some tips to make sure your vocal is good. First, use some reference songs and see how loud is that vocal compared to the instrumental, and try to do the same thing. Second, control the reverb. Let's say we have this song. The vocal is super quiet, it's super in the background. If we check just the vocal, it has way too much reverb. You maybe want to have a lot of reverb, but you can control it. In this case, if we remove some of the reverb, we still have a lot of reverb, but it sounds way cleaner, way more upfront in the mix. But if you want to have a lot more reverb, you can do something like sidechain, like with a peak control, for example. So as you can see, the volume is reducing when the vocal is singing. This way, when we have the singer singing, the volume of the reverb gets reduced, and then when we don't have the singer, the volume of the reverb gets up. So we have both things, a lot of reverb in the empty spaces, but a clear vocal when he's singing. Third, use tricks like the ping noise. The ping noise is just a sound like this. It's just noise that have like the same strength in all the frequency bands. You can use it this way. We're gonna listen to the instrumental together with the ping noise. And we need to hear the whole instrumental, or at least the main sounds. Right now I don't hear anything. So let's reduce the volume. Now you can hear the harp and some other instruments of the song. So now what we want to do is to play it with the vocal, and we need to make sure we also hear perfectly the vocal. Right now we can hear the vocal, but my advice is that you make the vocal a little bit louder. Try to make it stand out a bit more. So for me it sounds good like this. After this, remove the ping noise and adjust it to your preference. Maybe a little bit less, if you want to. And fourth, do EQ sidechain. The theory of EQ sidechain is so simple. If the vocal is strong here, what we're gonna do is reduce here in the instrumental. But of course, there are some parts where the vocal is not singing, and if we reduce it like this, the instrumental will sound bad. So different. So what we want to do is when the vocal is singing, it's gonna reduce here. When it's not singing, it's not reducing. My advice is to do it in different bands, like around here for the body of the vocal and around here for the clarity of the vocal. I have a lot of videos of how to do this in FL Studio. You can just search on YouTube Wildcrow EQ sidechain and you will find it. But for today's video, I'm gonna use Soothe, which will be a bit more precise. I have Soothe in the instrumental. So now from the vocal channel, we right click and choose sidechain to this track and leave it like this. Now we come back to Soothe, click here, here, processing, right click here and you will see the vocal. Click it. And finally you need to enable the sidechain. If we control, as I said, around the mid, low mids and the mid highs to give more strength, I'm gonna exaggerate it to the max in hard mode. When the vocal is not singing, it's not gonna do anything. But as soon as the vocal starts sounding, as you can see, the frequencies that are clashing with the vocal are getting reduced, but of course this is exaggerated. We lost completely the instrumental. Just maybe reduce max 3 dBs, something like this. You can control this the way you prefer, more sharp or less sharp. And like this is good. And if you're thinking this will make your song sound more empty, no, don't worry. When we reduce 3 dBs in a frequency of the instrumental, is because the vocal is there covering that space. And number 5, and it happens a lot, not having enough body and warmth. This can be for several reasons, like the speakers you use, the acoustics of your room, or maybe you're just not trained enough. But you need to make sure you have enough body in your song, aka low end, and enough warmth, aka low mids. Let's use again this song. Don't you think it doesn't sound heavy? It doesn't sound full? It doesn't sound warm? I decided to use this EQ just to show you, but basically what we don't have is not enough low end and not enough low mids. If we remove this, do you hear difference? My advice for this is to use reference sound and check, for example, how loud is the low end in those songs and have the same loudness. Check maybe if your bass is reaching as low frequencies as the reference song, or maybe yours only reaches 50 or 60 hertz. And for the warmth, actually there's not like one single tip, like, okay, do this, because it depends on every song, every preset you use, every part of the track. Just make sure you have enough strength around 100 and 300 hertz. You can also use reference songs to compare. For the break, sometimes what happens is that you have a really thin sub bass and maybe a high piano and that area is empty, maybe add a stronger bass or lower piano or another instrument. And for the drops, make sure to add several layers for the mid bass, and at least one of them needs to be really strong here. So all these are the most common mistakes producers are making and how to solve them. Subscribe and comment all the mistakes that you see our producers are making, and see you in the next video.